About a
That's
year
cool
ago, I
intro.
would have said that I can't believe Pantheon Rise of the Fallen was announced 8 years ago but still hasn't reached the state of being close to release. But after this past year of MMORPGs, I've never been more ready to just sit back and wait for something fresh, but more importantly a game that feels like it's worth playing over a long period of time. Pantheon to me has always been one of those titles seeking to bring back that old school feeling of the genre. It's a feeling that many have
I actually
claimed
really
over
like the
time
way
to be
this
dead
looks.
and gone. But as I get older, I'm starting to further understand the appeal of such a feeling, but also that the reason we don't get that old school experience anymore isn't just a game issue, but a people issue as well. Many in the gaming space no longer have the time or desire to spend hours in LFG chat finding our parties, trekking for 40
Gamers are very, very weak nowadays. And I'm not just saying, this is like across the board. I don't know what happened. I mean, it's with the casualization of like video games and shit, and microtransactions have made people so fucking lazy. That's what it is too, is like, a lot of these games, there's a lot of problems people have. It's like, Tarkov is a perfect example of this, because people don't want to put in the time to get better at Tarkov, and so they just like blame external factors. They watch Landmark get killed by a hacker, and they're like, oh, there must be a hacker in every lobby, when there isn't. Like, I play Tarkov 10 hours a day on stream sometimes. I don't queue on coastal servers, so that's a big thing too, is like, if you queue on coastal servers, you'll get a lot of hackers, but people, like, gamers are just, they're always looking for fucking some excuse nowadays, some fucking
minutes through a dangerous forest to reach a dungeon
and I think,
entrance.
like, a problem with that, with, like, games like this, if they're gonna come out and they're gonna try and mimic old MMOs, is there's gonna be a lot of grinds, and people are gonna be like, oh, this game sucks, because there's so much grinding, whereas, like, back in the day, when WoW came out, people were like, wow, this game is so fucking casual. Like, original WoW. They were like, this game is so fucking casual compared to, like, the older MMOs, like EverQuest and shit, and Ultima Online.
Or even spend an hour trying to figure out how
And
they
so,
need
like,
to progress their
gamers
next
have
quest
just
line or
changed.
farming enough to do so. And yet the experience sounds appealing all the same. Pantheon for a very long time has been the poster child for bringing back that experience, yet a question that many tend to ask when discussing it now is, will this game actually make it to release? Today I wanted to give a quick introduction and determine if the answer to that question is yes, but in reality, you never really know with these games in development, especially when they're crowdfunded. Pantheon is a massively multiplayer being developed by Visionary Realms on the Unity engine. This game has a big focus on the social aspects of MMOs, grouping up with other players to overcome challenge encounters, joining guilds, participating in raid content, the big stuff. This game was advertised as having a primarily PvE focus, although it has been said that we will probably get at least one PvP server on launch, and maybe other types with different rule sets like roleplay. Pantheon plans to feature 9 playable races, each with their own individual racial passives, and 12 different classes. As you can see, these 12 classes will be divided into 4 different archetypes: damage dealers, tanking, healing, and support. Paying homage to old school MMOs, the support archetype will feature gameplay centered around things like crowd control. If you're familiar with the way the Bard class worked in EverQuest, that would be the best example.
If you're like the only class of that role,
these types of classes focus on supporting your teammates while keeping the enemy under your control.
Or like hybrids in WoW, I guess.
Pantheon is going to feature encounters that will need a good deal
shit.
of strategy, so having people that can fill these types of roles will really boost your chances of surviving. Character progression is designed to be rewarding enough to make accomplishments feel more meaningful. One part of character development is obtaining spells and abilities. Many of the more powerful and exotic spells are acquired from NPCs found throughout the world. We are then able to gather what are known as mastery points, which can then be used to upgrade our abilities through something called the Living Codex. There are also forms of horizontal progress in Pantheon, such as crafting or gathering. Players can choose from 6 crafting professions: blacksmith,
good MMOs
outfitter,
need to have crafting and
woodworker,
shit.
jewel crafter, provisioner, or alchemist. And for gathering, we have mining, woodcutting, harvesting, skinning, and fishing. Each gathering and crafting skill can be leveled up to gain access to more materials and recipes, but we can also gain specializations for each one. Crafting is designed to have a symbiotic relationship with adventuring. Both will need each other at certain times during your gameplay. The items made with these professions are going to be just as valuable as those you loot from NPCs. And aside from a few class-specific rewards, most items in the game can be crafted. The game world of Pantheon is set in a seamless open landscape by the name of Terminus. This is a high fantasy world formed from the fragments of many different realms that were forced together by massive planar collision. By seamless open world, they mean that there are no instances, and the only time players may be presented with a loading screen is when teleporting across the world or entering certain dungeons. Pantheon will not have quote-unquote quest hubs or a mini-map, and instead aims to reward players for exploring organically.
I like that.
Now, Pantheon does feature verticality, which we'll go into in a moment, but while we're traveling across the world, players will encounter what's known as the perception system. For this one, I keep getting reminded of the MMO called Dungeons & Dragons Online. They had a similar system where we could search for hidden doors and treasure, and in this game we'll be able to do just that alongside taking it multiple steps further. In the world of Pantheon, we're going to encounter what are known as fractures, which are supernatural obstacles that players will have to contend with to navigate certain areas. Some examples include shifting walls, frenetic floors, absolute darkness, stuff like that. Pantheon will offer verticality like I briefly mentioned before. We're going to be able to climb almost any vertical terrain if our climbing skill is high enough. We're going to be experiencing around 6 extreme weather climates: frigid, scorching, toxic, anaerobic, pressure, and wind shear. On top of this, we've also seen a recent showcase of dynamic weather in their 1440p high-definition montage posted on March 17th, which also revealed a day-night cycle being in the game.
That's cool.
In Pantheon, there will be a death penalty, and it's one they describe as an experience you'll most likely want to avoid. So far, I haven't seen anything that goes into more detail than that, but judging from the experience this game is aiming to bring back, I would imagine we might find slight or maybe even moderate experience penalties when our characters actually die. Combat in Pantheon will mostly be tailored around groups of players, but there is content that will be doable solo. Yesterday, a video was posted on the Pantheon YouTube channel that gives a 30-second snippet for what to expect from the solo experience. The example they give is that for the first 5 levels, for the player that is playing by themselves, you will find that you're relatively capable of taking on enemies that are similar to your level. But when you get to around that level 5 point and beyond, it's going to get quite dangerous to take on mobs of your same level alone. As a solo player, you will have to begin farming on mobs that are lower than you, and the gap of strength to level ratio will increase as time goes on. This type of experience is one that could very easily persuade players to group up to take down different bosses and maybe even regular mobs past a certain threshold. There will be dungeon content in Pantheon, but since everything will be based in the open world, these dungeons are going to be massive to support multiple groups of players. Raid content will also be available alongside, of course, questing, but questing won't always be done in the way you expect. You may remember that I mentioned what's known as a perception system earlier. Sometimes when exploring the world, by using your perception skill, you'll come across what is known as a perception trigger, and by following them where they lead, you will be doing a type of quest line, but one that's given to you in the context by the environment. You can be rewarded in just as many ways as you would in a traditional quest line. Experience, items, a quest token, and maybe even special skills and abilities. There's a lot to learn when it comes to Pantheon and a hell of a lot of detail I'll have to sift through while catching back up on this game. But some features I'll be most curious to learn about will be dynamic events, world and field bosses, player and guild housing if there is some, pet systems, and especially the secret spells and abilities we'll be able to obtain. I'm sure we've got quite a ways to go till the beta or full release of this game, but I think the answer to the question, does the game seem capable of making it to release, is yes. Pantheon has got an extremely dedicated community of players with a very passionate group of developers behind the game. The only thing that could stop this game now is running out of money before the end. It's a very ambitious game, and judging from their most recent producer's letter, it's still got a ways to go. But I would hope that if it ever got to that point, that they'd rather start moving things along testing phase-wise instead of considering total shutdown. I don't think the concept has ever changed that if you're honest and put in the effort to take care of your game's community, they'll take care of you. But of course, on top of that, the product has to be decent and show some promise for the future. So for Pantheon, let's see what the future holds. Thank you for watching this quick introduction. Have a wonderful night or day, folks, and farewell.
Okay, I mean, that game does look good, but so this is something I saw with New World, and especially since this game, Pantheon's not going to be PvP, it better have as much content as the Burning Crusade did when it first came out in WoW. And if you don't know what that means, here, I could show you a really good video. We could skim through it, but it's like 10 years old. But it's called, what's it called? It's like, yo, come on, Chrome. Please. Please! The problem, yeah, I still have it. The problem with the mists. And this video is amazing. If you haven't watched it, I'm just gonna skim through it.
Appreciate why I don't like it without me giving you some sort of get to take that journey and feel I felt the first time I defeated a major boss in this game. Those guys will never take us into that guy. That is
alright.
End boss of a 10-man 2007 and 2000 outdied. It was intense. 2007.
Alright, so the Burning Crusade comes out January 16th, 2007.
The first end boss of a 10-man dungeon. The first man a 10-man was ever in the game. Some guilds running 3 or 4 groups a week to get through Karazhan. Nightbane did not die until the 29th of January. 13 days after the game came out, the first end boss die.
People
High
2
King
weeks.
Mulgore, the High King,
to kill the last boss of the first raid.
Bosses in Gruul's Lair.
And then you were able to get into this one.
25-man bosses died on the 26th.
This was just a one-man boss or a one-boss raid. It took them 10 days to kill one guy.
On the 3rd of February.
Oh no. Okay, so yeah.
The 3rd of February.
It took like that's like a month.
Standards. By the 3rd
that wouldn't happen today. So like that's what he's saying is like all this shit was in the game on release and the players could not access it. It gets crazier as it goes along. Like this guy wasn't defeated till like a month after, and then this raid wasn't beat. This was in the game when it first came out, when the expansion released, and people didn't get in here and kill this boss until March 29th. That's like 2 months after the game released. And that doesn't happen today. Like nowadays, it would be a fucking Twitch speed run. There'd be people streaming it, and they would have it down, like all the content down in like 3 days. That's actually what happened when it, like the version that's out now, the classic came out. That's exactly what happened. So play this whole video.
March, a full
it's
2
really
and a
like
half months after the game was.
It's kind of outdated because this video is 10 years old, but it's extremely relevant still. That's why this video is so fucking good, because this is still the problem with WoW, is that they release the expansion and then one raid, and then they make you wait a year, and then they give you another raid, and then they make you wait a year. So what I'm trying to say is, with Pantheon, if the amount of content in that game, like I saw this with New World, right? Got to max level in New World. What was there to do? 3 dungeons that you could only do once a week because of those attunement orbs, right? So that game died. So I see the exact same thing with Pantheon. If it's not a PvP game, if there's no PvP focus, that gives people almost no endgame unless there is a metric fuck ton of endgame, like the Burning Crusade had in Classic or in WoW.
Released. And scarier than that, Kael'thas Sunstrider stood tall and he stood proud in Tempest Keep until the 25th of May. Lady
That's
Vash,
crazy.
29th of March. We went all the way through April and all the way through May before Kael'thas's face was in the dirt. Do you know what's even scarier? The Black Temple patch 2.1 was released on the 22nd of May. The 22nd. Now remember, Kael'thas Sunstrider died on the 25th of May. That's right. Blizzard released the next raiding tier of content before anybody in the world could possibly enter that dungeon.
No one would ever do that anymore.
Take that in for a moment.
No game company.
That will never happen again.
Yeah, no game company will ever happen again.
What? It was fantastic.
Yeah,
they
it was.
Released content and said, the content is there, guys. You've got to go and get it.
That's the exact feeling. That's it. He just fucking nailed it. That's why this video is so good. Because that feeling of, like, knowing this dude, Illidan, is in the game.
And that is...
And you could just go in and kill him whenever you want, but you can't because it's too fucking hard. So you gotta go and clear earlier raids and get your raid group geared up more. That feels so fucking cool. And so that's what I'm trying to say. It's like in Classic, I felt like that when I was a kid because my guild was shitty and we just did Molten Core. We couldn't get into Blackwing Lair because we didn't have enough fire resistance gear. So, you know, Blackwing Lair was looked at as like this fucking exotic place. This is the exact same shit. Like, only one guild in the world killed this guy. And so that means they are the only guild that can possibly access the raid to get to this guy. And they released that patch knowing that. They didn't give a fuck. It was ready, so they released it. And that's what I'm trying to say with Pantheon. Is if, like, that game doesn't have that level of content for people to do when you hit max level, it's gonna flop. It's gonna fail. And that's kind of the bar I have for every single MMO that's going to come out, unless it has some crazy PvP system. So I believed in New World. That's what I believed in with New World. If you're wondering why, I thought that game, with like the way you could take over territories, they just didn't have enough. But like, that would be the content people could do, right? It's just like, make content for the players to do themselves, and like have RP in the server, have guild rivalries, shit like that. Like, that's the type of stuff. Yeah, it's kind of up to, like, the players to actually, like, be up to play the game. Like, you have to make a fun video game to make people want to do shit like that and, like, conquer areas and conquer lands and stuff. The problem with New World is, like, you can go back and watch my videos when I did my first invasions and shit. It was just laggy as fuck. It never worked. Nothing worked. Nothing happened. The game was broken. And so, you know, that sucks. But I mean, like, that's really it. It's like, if a game, like I said, if it's not going to be focused on PvP, then it's going to be, to me, there's such a high expectation on, like, man, we got to have fucking a shitload of raids ready for people to do when they hit max level, or people are just going to play Pantheon, get max level, and quit. Like, every other MMO that's come out, there's been so many MMOs that have come out, and exactly that has happened, so. Yeah, this is a really good video, too. This is, like, this is such a good video, and it's timeless, because no MMO will ever have this level of just fucking boss-ass shit ever again. And so, that's sad, but that's also a reality of games, but, yeah. Depression. Wow, my scav sucks. Everything is so accessible now. Yeah, I mean, in Final Fantasy XIV, you hit max level, you play through the storyline, which is just a cutscene. You're max level, and now you can access everything in the game by just doing, like, cutscenes, and I don't know, man. That's not it either, right? It's like, classic WoW, you had to get attuned to Anexia. You had to go run a little quest, run around the world. We did that together, Killcam. We had to go fucking do, like, kill those dragons and stuff in all 3 parts of the world or whatever. And then it lets you go into her lair. That shit's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like group content you gotta do with your friends. The only part that became annoying is when you leveled a new character and you had to fucking, like, do it yourself. Yeah. Just to be able to do the bosses. Gotta do a bunch of dungeons multiple times for gear just to be able to fight the bosses. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even need to be on that level, but that's, like, how it should be, is, like, New World just didn't have anything beyond the 3 dungeons. It had the PvP, but the game wasn't that fun, and the PvP wasn't that fun, but a game could be carried just by its players if they give the players something fun to, like, do. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say, is, like, if the game is fun and players are inspired to play it, they will create content for themselves. And so, yeah.